what is called a consent phase, and a review team can decide what happens when a community is in a consent phase. This happens, and I want to just run through this real quick. If you want a copy of this stuff, I'd be more than happy. As a matter of fact, I think we have some copies of most of this on the table out front. But there are triggers that gets a community into initially the consent phase before going into full-blown receivership. And I'll just mention a few. One is that the state financial authority receives written notification that a local government has not timely deposited its minimum obligation of payments in terms of its pension obligation. That the obligations in terms of payment of vendors and the like are not being done in a timely manner. One of the triggers here is that local officials can in fact ask the government to come in. Another one is a court has ordered an additional tax levy without the prior approval of the governing body of a local government. And so there are a number of triggers that gets a community to the point of having a review team come in and deciding what are the next steps. That review team can decide after a full review of all of these triggers that the community is not in an emergency situation, and a plan can be worked out, a deficit elimination plan, if you will, or that review team can decide that the local community is in a full emergency situation, makes that recommendation to the treasurer. And by the way, the treasurer is the person that has full power to make all of these decisions with, of course, the consent of the governor. I just want to mention real quick, a few of the powers of the emergency manager. And if I didn't say that these were powers of the emergency manager, you probably would think that I was talking about these are powers of the Ayatollah. But these are the powers. The emergency manager has the power to void contracts. The emergency manager has powers to merge communities, units of government. The emergency manager has power to sell off assets. If the emergency manager decided City of Flint has a water system, we'd like to sell it and use that cash for other purposes, the emergency manager can do that. The emergency manager can award contracts without bids. And my final point is during the deliberation of this legislation, the Democratic caucus, the Democratic members of the committee, and I serve as the ranking Democratic member, we offered up something in the neighborhood of 25 amendments. Even though this is bad legislation, when you're a legislator and you're in the minority as we are, you even try and make bad legislation better. 25 amendments and 0 amendments accepted. And these were not bad amendments, by the way. I mean, the purpose was not to torpedo necessarily, although that would have been our first option. But given the fact that we were in the minority, it was to try and make bad legislation better. So I'm going to stop, Mr. Moderator, and await questions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Stanley. Now, Reverend Edward Pigney is from Benton Harbor, and probably more than any other city in Michigan, Benton Harbor is either the main target or poster child of the whole process of state takeovers, and have faced probably the fullest brunt of this so far. So we'd love to hear your comments about what you have to say about this and how it's affected you.
I want to thank Woodside for inviting me. Also did a tremendous job explaining the law to the people, because a lot of times people don't quite understand what the law represents. But what I would like to talk about is Benton Harbor as a whole. I know about Benton Harbor. I know a little bit about Highland Park. I know a little bit about Detroit, but I really know about Benton Harbor. Our case was a little bit different. One of the things that we possess is this lakefront land. We're surrounded by water. Unfortunately, what happened here is that we have Whirlpool, a company that came in to take over the city of Benton Harbor, and will do it by any means necessary. My idea, what I attempted to do, was recall one of the commissioners who favored Whirlpool, and they accused me of voter fraud, which they know it didn't happen, because you could never ever reverse an election unless the majority of the votes become the minority. It never happened. But in order to get this land, Whirlpool had to do this. Gene Clark Park is a park surrounded by water. After the effect of that, they went out and built these million-dollar homes on this beach, which was illegal. Gene Clark Park was deeded to the residents of Benton Harbor. But Whirlpool came in and persuaded some of our commissioners. I won't say that they was giving money, because I don't have any evidence to support that. But they was giving our land. That's on the beach. Also, Gene Clark Park had Jack Nicklaus' signature golf course down in the city of Benton Harbor right now. And when you think about Gene Clark Park, it was leased to Harbor Shores for 99 years at about $20,000 a year, which is robbery. But here's the thing that brings us to we called it the emergency financial manager, but it's now labeled emergency manager. But in order for Benton Harbor, you have to understand this, under the former governor, Jennifer Granholm, she brought in the emergency financial manager under Public Act 72. And when Snyder came in, he decided to bring in, to change the laws around. And here's the reason. The residents of Benton Harbor put in 4 commissioners, which gave us 6 votes. Whirlpool could no longer get the land that they wanted. They could not get it because you have to have 6 votes in order to get it. So what they did, they decided that they was going to bring in a financial manager. Now here's where, when he talked about the Treasury Department, he's 100% correct, because I was there. I went to Lansing with the mayor and the pro tem. We sat down at a meeting and discussed what we can do. They said Benton Harbor was $5 million in the red, which wasn't really all that true, because we had not received our property money from the county. They was holding that money until the emergency financial manager can get there. They held that money. So when we talked to the Treasury Department, he informed us. He said, well, you're $5 million in the red. That's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money for a city. But what they told us, we could give you $5 million. We sat there and listened to him lie that he was going to do something that he had no intention of doing. He had no intention of doing this. So the very next month, they brought in the emergency financial manager, Joe Harris. What makes it so sad, they weren't satisfied with that. Because now they had to change the rule. Al Pachoka, a former Fred Upton, who's the heir of the World Group, he used to work for him. John Crows, he's in the Senate, used to work for Fred Upton. All of them got together and decided they was going to change the law to bring in the emergency manager, not the emergency financial manager, the emergency manager, change the rules and bring him in and give him power to terminate the mayor and the commissioners. And Benton Harbor was the very first city that this had ever happened to. What he did, he fired the mayor. He took the mayor office. The mayor had just purchased a brand new oak desk. He took that desk, had him come in and take that desk down to the basement and told him that if you're going to continue to be wearing the title of mayor, you're going to have to work from the basement. The citizen rose up at that time because we decided that we were going to take a stand. But it even gets better than that. The commissioners, he had 2 commissioners on his side, Joe Harris. But we had 6.5 on our side. And what we did, we decided that we was going to do something. He told them that they could no longer have a meeting. But if they did have a meeting, you could only open the meeting up, have the secretary take notes, and close it. Whatever you voted on meant nothing. Never in the history of mankind has something like this ever happened before. They decided, now these commissioners, they decided that they was going to continue to have meetings. Now, he's going to change the locks on City Hall as of Monday. This guy, he told Detroit News that not only is he the mayor, but he is the commissioners, he's the fire chief, he's the police chief. He makes all the decisions. He said if he voted on anything and the commissioners all voted against him, he said he win. He win. You got nothing coming. But my thing is this. Once you understand that it's not just happening in the city of Benton Harbor, they're training now 400 EFMs to come into these communities and take over. To me, Benton Harbor is the only city that I've ever witnessed fascism itself. Anytime a corporation merges with the government or the government merges with the corporation, you have fascism. And it's the first time in the history of mankind that you would ever witness this. Whirlpool is controlling the city of Benton Harbor with the government. And it never